Right. I'm going to begin to call to order the September 9th. Are you recording or? Okay. I'm going to call to order the September 9th, 2021 Fairfax County Architectural Review Board meeting. I will let you all know that to conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. That is a bit cumbersome, so I ask anyone participating in advance for your patience. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and that an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name, the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your other colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. I'll indicate I, Chris Daniel, Chairman of the ARB, so far can hear everyone who's spoken, and I'm presenting from my home in Reston, Virginia. Ms. Aubrey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am Miss Michelle Aubry, and I am at my residence in Alexandria, Virginia. I can hear everyone fine.
All right, Mr. Burns.
John Burns in my living room in south of Alexandria, Virginia, and I can hear everyone that I've heard so far just fine.
Ms. Wan?
Yes, this is Samantha Huang. I'm at Reston, my home, and I can hear everyone well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kolinsky.
Yes, Steve Kolinsky. I'm here in my office in Alexandria, and so far I could hear Mr. Burns and everybody else well.
Thank you, sir. Do not see Mr. McReynolds at this time in the lineup of folks, so I'm going to assume at this moment he is not present. Ms. Murray?
I am in the den in my home in Vienna, Virginia.
All right. I do not see Ms. Knockins. I'm going to assume she is absent. Ms. Orr?
I'm in my home in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. Mr. Plumpy?
I'm in my residence in Fairfax Station, Virginia, the English Hills, it's called, the development. And I can hear everybody very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Zellman?
Yeah, this is Zellman. I'm at home in Burke, Virginia, and I hear everyone just fine.
All right. At this current time, I show that Ms. Knotkins and Mr. McReynolds are absent. So I'll track that on our list. If they do rejoin later, Laura, if you or Denise will let me know so that we can add them later on. At this point, I'm going to pass the virtual gavel to the vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. Mr. Spellman, I move that each ARB member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I think I heard Ms. Orr first with the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right. As determined by the roll call, 9 members of the ARB are present and therefore satisfy the quorum minimum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
All right, there's a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
All right, second for Mr. Kolinsky. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And the motion carries.
All right. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels those emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we've arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB in the presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB's county website or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 179-044-8566. It is so moved.
There's a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstention? And the motion carries.
Next is required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
There's a motion. Second.
I'll second it.
Heard Mr. Burns with a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All nay. Any abstention? And the motion carries.
Lastly, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item. It is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, there's a motion. Second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Any abstention? Motion carries. And the virtual gavel back to the chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. All right, so we've gotten through that cumbersome list of activities, and now turn over to staff for any virtual meeting WebEx information. Laura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Arsenault, the ARB administrator for the last meeting, maybe. And if you have any questions with WebEx, you can use the chat function at the bottom right of the screen or email me at my email address during the meeting, and staff will help you through that. Once your item is called up later in the meeting, we will promote you to panelists and give you the opportunity to present a presentation if you have one. That's
All
it.
right. Thank you, Laura. And since I didn't ask, and since I'm a little rusty anyways, obviously as we begin every ARB meeting, we also do the reading of the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. And I'll take that on myself today. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against the destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent the creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced. All right, all that out of the way, we then move on to our official agenda, which is the first and foremost to approve the agenda. I would look, Laura, were there any last minute additions to the draft agenda that was shared? Otherwise, if not, I would look for a motion from one of our members to approve the agenda as presented.
We will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, Mr. Klinsky, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
I think that was Kay that got in first there. So we have a motion. All those favor, aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? All any abstentions?
Aye.
Hearing none, the agenda carries. Oh,
I abstained because I did not get the second, so no problem.
okay.
No worries.
Mr. Plumpy has abstained from his vote on the agenda. Very well. Okay, so we have the agenda approved. Moving onward through that agenda, we go on to the introduction and recognitions of guests. Laura, do we have any folks that we need to introduce?
I believe everyone in the attendee list is here for an action item or a workshop item. So no guesses at this time.
Wonderful. Well, they're all guests here. Just we don't have to go for introductions yet because we'll get to hear from them, right? Okay. Well, that brings us right on to consent calendar action items. Obviously, with consent calendar action items, we first would look to see if there's any public comment on them before there's any motion made. So we only have one consent calendar action item. But at this time, I would ask Laura if you see if there's any member of the public that wants to comment on any of those items.
I don't see anyone commenting or chatting, so I think we are in the clear.
All right. Well, if with that in mind, I would entertain a motion to approve the one single consent item we have.
I'd like to make the motion to approve consent item ARB 21-LFK-02 as shown on the agenda.
All right. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second that motion, but I have a question of process and policy for Laura.
Certainly, John. Go right ahead.
Okay. This is portrayed in the agenda as an after-the-fact approval. I have no objection to the design or execution of the work, but is that something that should be noted in the formal approval?
Yes, I'm happy to do that in the formal approval. I've worked with the applicant on that. He knows that it was an error, and we are working to address it now so he can get his building permit finalized. This was done, I think in the letter, it was done a couple of years ago now. It's not a new addition.
Yes, the photographs indicate that this is, it integrates well and is obviously has had some age on it already. So. That would be my only comment.
Understood.
John,
is there a particular way you would like that described, perhaps in the motion or?
Let's see. The motion says.
The motion doesn't have it in there because it's a consent item, but I'm happy to put that wording in the letter.
Okay, yeah. Where is the motion? Let me get the motion. Yeah, I would add the language that you had in the agenda.
Okay.
Is its approval of an already constructed roof over the existing terrace.
Okay, will do.
If that's acceptable to the maker of the motion.
Is that acceptable?
Yes, it is acceptable. Thank you so much, John.
All right, we have a motion and it has been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries unanimously. All right, that takes us out of our consent items and brings us into our items for action. I will remind all applicants that are presenting tonight, whether it is for a workshop or for an application, particularly for applications, if this is a first-time presentation, please try to limit your presentation to roughly about 8 minutes. For resubmissions or follow-up presentations, let's try to keep it to about 3 minutes, recognizing that the ARB was on recess last month. And I do know we have quite a few things in here that folks want to talk about. Let's try to move through them as efficiently as possible. With that in mind, we move on to item number 2, ARB 19 LOR 07, amendment proposal for restroom facility at the Laurel Hill Central Green Park, located at 8780 Furnace Road. This is being presented to us by Mr. Don Gray for Schaefer and Wilson. And the applicant has previously presented to us in a workshop back in June of 2021.
Kelly, this is Laura. Sorry, I need to know who else you need to promote.
Zina Al Nasser.
Okay. Sure.
So in keeping with the 3-minute limitation, do you all want me to go back through the site photos and the vicinity map, or do you all just want to get right into the 2 items in the bathroom building?
I think let's get right into the 2 items in the bathroom building.
Okay, so essentially the bathroom building, the 2 items you all had was roof thickness on the graphic and downspout protection. So Zina is prepared to, she's made those changes and is prepared to show the
And don't stress, I do not have a timer running while you're presenting.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen. I think, can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so like Kelly explained, the two comments that we had from the last workshop were the roof thickness and the protection for the downspouts. So I went through my drawings and added some more details to show the actual roof thickness with the actual structure. So I added, I think you're all familiar with everything here. It's the building design stayed the same and everything. The roof got a little bit thicker, and that was the site plan. And the material stayed the same with the brick and the split face that match the other historical buildings around it. And the detail, I added some more sections also as well through the building. And the detail that I was referring to is this one here. So this is the actual structural members that this roof consists of. I have the 6x10 beam, tube beam with the metal enclosure. So that's the actual thickness. It would be about 20 inches total thickness. It might be plus or minus, but that's how it would be after our structural engineer calculates it exactly, but this is how it's going to be. And for the downspout protection, I added these sleeves. They're 2 feet high. Since no lawnmowers will be around, they will not hit it. It's only for pedestrian protection. And these are their downspout guards that just enclose the bottom part of those downspouts. And everything else is the same as we discussed before. That's it. Those were the elevations. I kept the slope as is, and here the thickness of the roof increased here, and yeah, these are the protection for the downspouts. Same as here.
All right. Are there any other changes or updates you would want to remind us of before we go around to the members?
There are no other changes that I've done to the drawings other than the comments that I had from our last workshop. I can go through the entire design just to remind you as a reminder. I added also this clear story to show where the clear story, how it would go all around the building. And this was the floor plan. So as you get straight from this side here, you'd see this building, and on the left side there's the women's. It has several stalls with accessible stall, and same for the men's. And then here we have bench area. It's covered where people can just put their stuff and wait for their other family members to use the restrooms. And then in the back there are 3 family restrooms and the utility room. This is a view, front view, when you're entering the site. And then that's the site. These are existing pavilions on site. And we have bike rack next to the new building that we're proposing. And this view shows seating area around the building and the clear story. And this is the entrance here from this side. And then from the other side, this is the bench area, the covered bench area. And this is a new I didn't have this before. It's a clear story floor plan just to show all the clear story around to provide natural lighting. And this is a section. I added 2 more sections just to show the relationship between the spaces and how the clear story opens up upon all the spaces. So it provides natural lighting everywhere. And these are the elevations with the materials listed that we used. And these match the existing historical buildings around the site. And that's it.
All right. Well, I will obviously let's go around the room because the way we've been conducting this digitally, I will walk through the various members who are here and present and let them ask any questions they might have. But before that, I also, sorry, did I interrupt someone else? As well, we will also make sure to give the public a chance to comment after that as well. I will, Laura, if you keep an eye out just in case, I'm going to try to prime that now in case there is any member of the public that has a comment on this. We'll catch you after the members have commented. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank the applicant for the presentation, answering the questions that were posed earlier. I have no questions. I have no comments. I think it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burns. Oh, John, you're muted on us, I think. I definitely still cannot hear you.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay, I had my mic turned up so I wouldn't be interfere with other folks. Sorry about that. Yes, I have a couple of questions and one concern. Could the applicant please put up drawing A4, particularly the detail in the upper right corner of that drawing? If you could zoom in on it, that would be helpful. Oh, your drawing set is different than my drawing set. Okay. It's the detail of the edge of the roof overhang that shows that there it is. There it is. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, the question I had is I'm concerned that the increased thickness of the roof destroys, it's really heavy looking. It looks like this giant thing pushing down on the building. And I'm wondering, in looking at this detail, might it be possible, since you don't need to insulate the overhang like you need to insulate the part that is over the habitable spaces of the building, could that last bit of the roof be tapered so that the depth of the edge of the overhang that is visible from the side would not be as high? That would be my recommendation, is to consider that as an alternative. Obviously, on the side and the upper edge of the roof, that would just, where there's no inset gutter, that would just need to be, after you pass the outside perimeter of the wall, it would need to have insulation that would taper down a bit to hide the thickness of the overall roof. That would be my recommendation.
I think that that can work. In this overhang, we, like you said, it's here and here. So I think we can address that. Yeah. Keep in mind that these structural sizes are not final. I did them to the maximum that could be. So they might get less a little bit after the structural engineer does his calculations. So it might be a little bit less heavy. This is the maximum that I could think of, which is 20 inches.
It's pretty thick for a very small structure.
Yeah.
So, and then anything that you and the engineer in collaboration might be able to do to reduce that thickness at the edge,
exactly,
that would be fine. I don't object to the thickness over the habitable part of the building, but rather the overhang would be nice to be able to taper that down.
Yeah, yeah. If the structural members cannot be reduced overall, then probably, yeah, I can do that with the overhang, just make it less thick, since no insulation is needed in that area. Definitely.
Thank you, I appreciate that. No further comments.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
Ms. Wan.
Yes, I thank you for applicant's response to our comments and putting doing a reality check on it and show us the detail. I just want to say thank you, and I have no further comments.
Thank you, Ms. Wan. Mr. Kalinsky.
Just like to thank the applicant for the response, because I know this has gone through several iterations, and I think it has continued to improve, and I think it's where it needs to be. So thank you, and you've got my support.
Ms. Murray.
I am fine with the application as presented.
All right, Ms. Orr.
I'm not as fond of the brick as I am the panels that she presented the last time, but other than that, it's good to go.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Plumpy.
That's an excellent presentation. I think it's going to be a wonderful building, and I can't wait to use it, actually. Look forward to it. It's down in my house. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
No comments. I always support the proposal. Thank you.
All right, I agree with my colleagues. I really appreciate the applicant and their efforts in working with us for the various workshops. I think I was on the other side of this when it came to the original design and what it looked like. And I do like where it's evolved to as well. It's good design. I agree with Mr. Burns that the roof itself felt a little heavy. So in my mind, whatever can be done to minimize that as much as possible to not feel like it's being squashed. But it's good to know that you were designing to a maximum and not necessarily to what had to occur. So I second his recommendation on any efforts to do to reduce that impact on the property. With that in mind, Laura, did any members of the public have any comments on this item?
Not that I see.
Hearing that there are none, I would entertain a motion. Obviously, there were some conditions or recommendations provided, and it seems like the applicant was amenable to working with those. So we may want to factor those in any proposed motion.
Mr. Chairman, since I was the one who proposed a potential modification, I will make an attempt at a motion.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. For ARB LOR-07 amendment, the Laurel Hill Central Green bathroom, the ARB motion for approval is, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB-19-LOR-07 amendment located at 8780 Lorton Road in Lorton, tax map 107-3, Lot 19 in the Laurel Hill MOA area for the proposal for restroom facility at the Laurel Hill Central Green Park as submitted and presented at the September 9, 2021 ARB meeting. Subject to the following conditions: that the applicant explore the possibility of reducing the edge of the roof overhang to reduce its apparent mass. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance section 3101-historic overlay districts.
Thank you, John. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'd second that motion.
I believe that was Mr. Kalinsky that seconded that.
Yes.
All right. We have a motion is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, it appears, just to confirm, Ms. Aubrey, Ms. Murray.
Oh, yes, aye.
Heard ayes? Okay. I wanted to be certain. I didn't hear a lot. And
Sorry, I always just leave it muted and figure you'll just look at my mouth.
okay.
Sorry, me too.
That's all right. I had the drawings up, so I couldn't see everybody on my screen. So that was okay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And Laura will work with you, staff will work with you about the final approval and all that information following the meeting.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Moving onward, we're going to stay in that same relative area. However, for item number 3, we're going to go to ARB 19 LOR 07 Amendment 2, proposal for an internal road and parking lot for Laurel Hill Central Green near the Barrett House. This is located at 8780 Lorton Road in Lorton Tax Map 107-3 ;119. The applicant also previously presented to us in 2021 in June, and I believe this one is being represented by
Matt Tauscher.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Good to have you back.
Yeah, if you can let Matt Tauscher and Ben Hartman in as well, Laura. So we can do the same thing where you all saw this in June. You had a few comments about, the only 2 comments we really received was about the driveway width. You wanted it narrower and revised the sidewalk. So I could just go straight to that if you like.
Kelly, who would you like to present, Matt or?
I could probably present most of it unless the question's
Okay.
a little too technical, and then I'll have Matt or Ben come on. Do you have the presentation or should I pop it up?
If you could pull it up, that would help just so I could monitor the WebEx better. But if you need me to pull
Okay,
it up,
yeah, I think, let's see if I can do this. Share. This is a new county computer and I don't know if it'll do what it's supposed to do. It says share content, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. I might be blocking, I'm not sure. Because it's not giving me an option to.
try again, Kelly.
Let's see, screen. There we go. Okay.
Yes, we do see your screen now.
Okay, so now I don't see. Okay, so I'll just get straight to the revised sheet. So can you see the revised sheet? Because I just moved. Okay, yeah.
Yes, we
All
can.
right, so this is revised grading plan and driveway plan. Mr. Plumpy wanted to see some grading and to get to the point of the revisions. You all, when we came to you in June, we discussed moving the sidewalk away from the house, the Barrett house. So if you can see in red that we have moved the sidewalk, so now it goes along the entrance drive that comes off of Lorton Road instead of it. Originally, it went around the driveway, so we removed it to get it away from the Barrett house. And then the other comment was to make the driveway itself a little narrower. So we made it 12 feet wide and kind of revised the shape of it a little bit to get it away from the intersection here with the proposed entrance drive that goes into the development beyond the overlay district. Mr. Plumpy wanted to see some grading. So this is the grading plan as well. You can see there is a bit of a storm, a little bit of a storm pond that goes over onto our site. But we did try to minimize most of the grading on the overlay site. And those are pretty much the 2 items that we had comments on that we had to revise.
All right. Well, were any of your other co-presenters, did they have anything else to add? Otherwise, I'll go over to member comments.
Oh, I just remember one more comment from Miss Aubrey was if we'd had a phase 1 done. I talked to Amy Wells. We have had a phase 1 done. They had it done when they started the resident curator project at the Barrett House. So there has been a phase 1 performed on this site already as well.
And just to give you information on that, there was one site 44 FX 2596 that was identified. However, it was significantly disturbed and identified primarily in plow zone and topsoil, and there were no features identified. And Mark Holma had also had the opportunity to look at this and approved it.
And Liz, just for the record, can you state your name and everything so we have it?
I'm sorry, Chris. Liz Crowell, Archaeology and Collections Bridge Manager.
I know all of us recognize who you are, but I want to be sure if anyone does watch it, they have you. Thank you, Liz. All right, if there's no other any other input from the applicant, I'll obviously remind any members of the public if they have a comment, please say something in the chat so that we can get to you. Otherwise, we'll go through our members. Ms. Aubrey, I feel like the question that you were going to ask has been answered, but you're up.
Well, it has, and thank you so much. I appreciate your following up on the issue, since there's looked to be a lot of grading going on in this project. And I'm glad to hear that there's not any problem with archaeology, because we never want archaeology to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I had two concerns from the workshop, both of which have been addressed. One is the rather aggressive driveway that led up to the property that will now serve a different purpose, and then also the sidewalk, which also came quite close to the property. You have addressed both of those. I have no other comments. Thank you for doing those changes.
Ms. Swan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have no further comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kalinsky?
No further comments either. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Murray?
None for me either.
Ms. Orr?
None for me either.
Mr. Plumpy?
No comments. Thank you so much for doing what you did. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Mr. Zellman?
No comments. Thanks for the changes based on our comments.
All right. I likewise don't have any additional comments. Thank you very much for all your efforts and look forward to seeing this done. I would ask Laura, is there any member of the public who had any comments they've indicated?
No.
All
right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion from a member.
I'd like to make a motion for approval, please, of ARB 19-LOR.07, Amendment 2 as submitted.
Could you give us a little bit more flavor text on that, Joe?
Sure. As submitted with the relocation of the sidewalk, as well as the narrowing of the proposed driveway as well that's near the house.
All right. Is there a seconder?
I will second that. And do you want the full text as Laura shared with us?
I'm sorry, I don't have full text. I apologize. So I'm just kind of ad-libbing, so I apologize.
I would welcome that as a friendly amendment if you want to propose it.
Okay, as a friendly amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Joe. I was trying to hint it. I didn't realize you didn't have it.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Chairman, as a friendly amendment, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 19-LOR-07, Amendment 2, located at 8780 Lorton Road in Lorton, Tax Map 1073-1, Lot 19, in the Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area, for the proposal for an internal road and parking lot for the Laurel Hill Central Green near Barrett House, as submitted and presented at the September 9th, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of Zoning Ordinance Section 3101, Historic Overlay Districts.
Joe, is that a friendly amendment acceptable?
More than acceptable. Thank you so much, John. I apologize for not having it in front of me. Yes.
That's no problem.
Quite all right. So we have a motion that's been accepted by both the motioner and the seconder. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much again, and Laura will be with you following the meeting to follow up on the final stamping and approvals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all your help.
All right. Moving onward and upward, we now move on to item number 3 on our agenda. This will be, item number 4. My apologies. ARB 21-LOR-01, proposal for renovation of building W-35 adjacent to the Workhouse Arts Center, located at 9541 Workhouse Way within the boundaries of the 2001 district identified in the Memorandum of Agreement, Tax Map 113-101014. This proposal is for renovating existing facility. It's been before us quite a few times, but most recently at the June 2021 meeting. It's my understanding that Ms. Jacqueline Miller of Glaven Homes will be representing the application. Ms. Miller, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. And I believe we can pass control for you so you can present any changes and other information for us, and we'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I will go through this presentation. Like you said, we met most recently at a workshop in June, and there were a couple comments which I will move forward to. This is our site plan. I believe the only minor change to this was the dumpster enclosure. We had it more straight on, and we shifted it more for like an ease of access to that and the idea of trucks coming in and backing out. So that got angled slightly different. And then the comments that we had were on our landscape plan. And so this is the updated landscape plan. I believe one of the comments was to look at grouping the trees more by species. And so we took another shot at this, and to make sure to include the tree schedule. I believe we had not submitted this to you, so you had not had a chance yet to review it. We just presented it at the workshop. But those are the only major changes. The rest of the presentation has not been changed since our workshop meeting. So I can leave it at that for right now, unless there's questions or comments.
All right, I think you rather succinctly summarized, and I think we're all very familiar with this project. So we'll go through the lineup, and maybe it's only Mr. Plumpy that we're most waiting for, but we'll start with Ms. Albury.
Thank you so much for the update, and I have no concerns or questions, and I'm ready to approve it. Thank you.
Mr. Burns.
Thank you again for the updates and for the clarification. And I think waste management folks will thank you for the alignment of the recycling cans. That will make their life easier. So I'm perfectly happy with everything that you've presented, and would recommend its approval.
All right, Ms. Swan.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kalinsky.
I'm happy with the final result. Thank you.
Ms. Murray.
Nothing for me on this one either.
Ms. Orr.
Thank you for coming back and answering our questions.
All right, Mr. Plumpy.
It's all good. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate the changes and the additional information.
All right, and Mr. Zellman.
I'm also good. Thank you very much.
All right, and I, like my other fellow members, agree. I am very happy to see this one move forward and really appreciate all the efforts that were taken to respond to our workshop feedback. Laura, were there any members of the public who have any comments on this item before we take it up for motion?
I don't see anyone at this time.
All right. Well, with that in mind, I would look for a motion for potentially approval.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zellman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that the ARB approve action item ARB 21-LOR-01 located at 9541 Workhouse Way in Lorton, tax map 113-1 double paren 1 lot 14 in the Laurel Hill MOA area for the proposal for the renovation of building W-35 adjacent to the Workhouse Arts Center is submitted and presented at the September 9th, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance section 3101- historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the item passes unanimously.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Miller. And I think I speak for everyone on the board. We look forward to seeing this project move forward and getting our county's collections into a wonderful facility.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Moving on past item 4, we move to our last action item, which is action item ARB number 5, ARB 21-SUL02, Dulles Discovery South parking located between Route 28 and Centerville Road in the Sully Historic Overlay District at tax map numbers 34-2-1, 2C2P and 2D2P2 and E2E1PT. Wow, that's a mouthful. And this is being represented by John McGranahan of Hutton, Andrews, and Kerf.
Chris, this is Laura. Mr. McGranahan couldn't make it tonight, so we have Miss Susan Yentis with us tonight. And Susan, let me know if there's anyone else I need to promote from the attendee list.
Yes, Laura, this is Susan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to thank you very much for letting us return back to the committee for this application for a decision. I have tonight with you our team, Bill Smith and Pete Dunn with the Peterson Companies, Sergio Capuccio and Rose Gard from HGA Architects, and then Adam Steiner with J2 Engineers, who we've been working with on this application. We have, again, this application is for a proposed support building, a low-scale building, a one-story building within the Sully Historic Overlay District. Also relating to the application, we're reducing the height of the planned building, Dulles Discovery 5 building, and its related GFA to transfer that to the proposed support building. Sergio, we have, again, our team. Sergio, would you like to put up one of the exhibits of the proposed support building so that they can remind what it looks like from our last meeting?
Sure, I think Laura can give presentation abilities to Sergio, and we have the materials that were submitted, so obviously if you have a presentation that you want to pull up too, that is fine. I know this one has a lot of ins and outs in it due to the long history of reviews for this property.
Thank you. I was not able to share, but now I can see the share content option. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Right, Susan?
Yes, thank you. Again, this is this exhibit is an aerial perspective showing the location of the Dulles Discovery North and South Campus. As you can see, the Air and Space Museum Parkway and along Route 28. It's a big overall. You can see here the existing and planned office buildings located here. This is Dulles Discovery North here. You can see my cursor. And this is historic Sully Way. Okay, next slide. Go through. Again, you've seen these, I think, this presentation from the last meeting. But again, this is a prior approval from several years ago, 2010, where we had the proposed buildings here along with a larger building within the Sully Historic Overlay District here. Next slide. And we have now moved the DD5. We have taken the larger building that was located in this area. We are moving that to the proposed Dulles Discovery 5 building in this location. And this is the existing surface parking. Next slide. This exhibit shows again the existing planned buildings here in Dulles Discovery South. This is the historic Sully Historic Overlay District. And here is the proposed support building, which is a one-story, low-level, low-scale building in this area within the Sully Historic within the Sully Historic District boundary. Here's a large tree buffer that the Peterson Companies had provided several years ago. And again, here's the Sully Historic District core here. Next slide. Again, here's another exhibit of the overall of the Dulles Discovery South with the Sully Historic Overlay District line. This is the location of the support building with the this shows all the existing tree buffer located between the Dulles Discovery South and the Sully Historic Site. Next slide, Sergio. Again, this shows the distance between the proposed support building to the Sully Farm, which is roughly 0.26 miles. And this tree buffer, again, as I said, is what we planted for on behalf of the Peterson companies. Next slide. And again, this is just a larger, enlarged detail showing the proximity between the proposed low-scale building and the Sully Farm. Next slide. Sergio, why don't you go through the next slides after these? But this again is an example of 3D model view from the Sully Historic Site here. This is this takes away or shows deletes the tree buffer that's existing there, but you can see the low scale building here with the office buildings behind it. This lower image shows the landscaping that is existing in the location. It shows that you will not be able to see the office buildings from the Sully Historic Site, especially since it's a one-story building. The next slide. Again, this is the existing site condition that shows the existing surface parking in this area. Next slide. And this is the proposed support building location within the service parking area that you saw formerly, with landscaping along the property area here, as well as some parking along the property. Next slide.
Yeah, and again, the takeaway from this slide is that we're actually reducing the amount of impervious area and creating a more generous landscape buffer zone around the existing cemetery.
Yes, and again, this exhibit is a landscape plan showing all the details of the plantings that we intend to provide on the site, consistent with the rest of the Dulles Discovery South. Next slide. Sergio, why don't you take these?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And since day one, we knew that we were well within the Sully Historic District overlay district. So we started looking at the existing structures within the farm, and to quickly realize that we were not going to be able to make an aesthetic connection with the existing structures through shapes and forms, but we decided to start looking at some common denominators among larger structures in farms in the area and in general in the West Coast. So materials and textures to draw from. Something that we noticed quickly was the common language of the vertical siding that never touches the ground and it always sits on top of a masonry or a stone foundation wall. So that started to give us some ideas as to how we could, the color palette and material palette that we could generate. Throughout the presentation, we put some statements from the Sully Historic District guidelines that we thought they were relevant, especially 3.13 that says, keep color schemes simple and use muted low intensity colors, which I believe we have achieved. And that informed our color palette. Most of our walls are cast in place walls, so we took advantage of form liners to create that vocabulary of randomly located vertical reveals that never touch the ground. They're always sitting on top of a stone wall or foundation wall that brings unity to the entire composition. And even the limited areas where we have glass, we use vertical mullions in a randomly located manner. And we have some wood texture accentuating the main entrances. Here we can see the facades. And again, one of the statements of the Sully design guidelines is that the height limit is 35 feet. And the slide here, what we wanted to convey is that we're well within that 35-foot height restriction. And again, many different elements. This is a highly utilitarian structure with program requirements that dictated different ceiling heights. So we wanted to have that unifying element that is the stone foundation wall. And we wanted also to limit the amount of texture and materials to bring unity to the overall composition. Along the east facade, we can see the main entrance with some wood accent colors and a limited use of curtain wall. So what does this building look like in 3D? Well, I mean, here we have the north facade across the stormwater management pond with the Dulles Discovery 4 building, and we can see the low scale of the support building. And a closer look reveals the horizontal texture of the cast-in-place walls that rest on top of the stone foundation wall. The north facade and its totality, and a close-up looking at a mechanical courtyard that also picks up on the vertical theme of the vertical lines. And again, the generous landscape around this new facility. And we can see along the northwest corner the 2 rows of birch trees that start to dialogue with the vertical nature of the curtain wall mullions. And we can see here the main entrance with some wood accent to create some warmth as you enter the building. And again, the southeast corner with a canopy that extends beyond the building to bring some protection from the inclement weather, reaching across to be closer to the accessible handicapped parking spaces. And again, the vertical nature of the cast-in-place walls. And just to recap, the overall area of both the north and the south campus with the support building and the very important tree buffer that will ensure that we preserve that farm atmosphere from the historic farm. This slide just to show that we don't shy away from LEED certification. We have a proven long track record of certifying our buildings since the Dulles Discovery site was first created, all the way from Dulles Discovery 1 all the way to Dulles Discovery 4, and now we are tracking for LEED certification for the Dulles Discovery 5 and the support building as well, which we're still to be determined, but we're tracking some LEED certification. And with that, we conclude our presentation and we open the conversation for questions.
All right, thank you very much. Laura, obviously keep an eye out. If any member of the public does have a comment, please indicate in the chat to Laura and we'll get to you after we go through the members. We'll go around the list, starting with Ms. Aubrey.
I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Burns.
Yes, could you please put up your slide number 5?
This one right here?
Yes, sir. That's I have two comments about this. Both I think are very highly complimentary of the Peterson companies. We very rarely see such a dramatic respect for the edge of the historic overlay district as is exhibited in this illustration here. Is that you've kept all of the larger scale buildings beyond the boundary of the scope of review for the ARB. I think you all should be commended for that. That's very rare that we would see that. I would also like to compliment you guys on the attention to detail of the facade materials on the exterior of the building, as respectful of the materials found in the historic building, but sufficiently differentiated so there's no question that this is a related part of Sully. but because of the vastly different massing and all. But it's also very respectful of the fact that you are within the confines of the boundary of a historic overlay district. In both respects, I think that you've done a commendable job. I thank you for it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, yes.
Mr. Daniel, we're not hearing you.
All right, I did commit the faux pas there of muting myself. All right, Ms. Wan.
I thank you for the presentation. And all that study about the bomb and historical, and then in the result showing this very modern design. I don't see problem with it, and I don't have an objection to it. And I thank you for the study work and research work you have done.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Kalinsky, or Ms. Kalinsky, Mr. Kalinsky.
Thank you. Tonight it's Mr. I just want to say this is I think is a beautiful piece of architecture. It's well integrated to its immediate site as well as the historic district. These guys should be commended for an excellent job. Have my support.
All right, Ms. Murray.
I agree with all the compliments, and I'd like to repeat again my previous comment that this building will be a vast improvement to the approaches to Sully. Even though it won't be visible from the district, you'll be seeing it as you come in, and it will look much better than the surface parking. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr.
Job well done. Thank you.
Mr. Plumpy.
Yes, excellent job, guys. I can't look forward to seeing it. And I worked with I worked with the architects before HGA, excellent firm. So you're in good hands.
Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, I agree with all colleagues' comments, and I support the proposal. Thank you very much.
All right, I agree with my fellow board members. This is a very beautiful piece of design, and I agree with Ms. Murray. This is a vast improvement to that parking lot that we would see here. I think it's great. Look forward to approving it. Laura, did we have any members of the public that had any comments?
No.
All right, seeing none, I would look to a member to see if they have a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 21-SOL-02, located between Route 28 and Centerville Road in Chantilly, tax map numbers 34-2:1, C2C part, D2D part, and 2E1 part in the Sully Historic Overlay District for the proposal for the Dulles Discovery South parking as submitted and presented at the September 9, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance section 3101, historic overlay districts.
All right, do we have a second?
Happily second that.
All right, seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you again very much to all of y'all, and we look forward to seeing this project move forward. Laura will be in touch with you in the coming days.
Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate all your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, that takes us out of our action items and brings us into the workshop session, which we have one item. That will be ARB 21-LOR02, proposed adaptive reuse of the reformatory power plant building R30, located at 8426 Reformatory Way in the Laurel Hill adaptive reuse area. This is going to be, based on my notes, being represented by Mr. Jack Perkins from Elm Street Development. Mr. Perkins, are you there?
I am. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear
Excellent.
me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing a presentation on this building. This is always quite the unique one.
Thank you. I'm also joined this evening by my colleague, David Voss from the Alexander Company, and we will be jointly making this presentation. So tonight we're here in a workshop setting to discuss and propose the next step on taking the power plant and activating it for a residential use. So it's been called the power plant as long as I can remember, but it really is the central boiler house. This is the building that's shown there in the center of the drawing. It's the purple square. This was the plant that provided steam and hot water to the entire campus for heating and cooking and showering and all of those things. It has been a coal-fired plant and more recently a fuel oil fired plant. So when we took the property through the rezoning in 2014, it is in the PDH district, and it has the ability for commercial uses, but it also is zoned and has approval for up to 12 residential units. Our development agreement with Fairfax County, the master agreement, said that we would market this building for commercial purposes for a certain period of time, I believe 30 months from the time we started construction. We've now been marketing it for commercial uses for 5 years. And while we've had some interest in the building from a variety of users, everything from dance studios to gymnastics gyms to exercise concepts to one of the most recent was a office sharing concept. While there has been some interest, we have not been able to get to a viable lease with anyone. And the main complaints or concerns that we have received over the years have to do with its location. And as you can see on the site plan, it is in the middle of the site and has no visibility from either of the main roads, Silverbrook Road there to the east or Lorton Road to the south. So it is a very challenging retail or commercial location. So we've come to the point now, the building, in the first phase of the project, we stabilized the building. We cleaned it up, abated the environmental concerns, turned it into a warm lit shell, and it has been sitting vacant there since 2016. So we're at the point now where we want to explore the option of converting it to 10 residential apartment units. And that's the presentation we will be making here this evening, is specifically what changes are required on the exterior of the building to bring it into code compliance for residential occupancy. So with that, I will hand it off to Dave Voss and let Dave walk you through the architectural slides.
Thank you, Jack. Good evening, everyone. So let me start with the existing photos of the building. This is the east elevation of the building that fronts Reformatory Way. And the front door of the building is located across a small bridge that leads from Reformatory Way to the front entrance of the building. The south elevation is sunken into a courtyard, and you can see this elevation from Reformatory Way if you look to the north, but the elevation of the bridge is about to the bottom of that water tank that you see in this image. There's another entrance on the right-hand side of the building, and the large clear-story space that you see in the west elevation wraps around from the north all the way to the north elevation of the building. And at the north elevation of the building, there is a brick walled courtyard that has a former train trestle that spans across a portion of the courtyard. So this image shows the existing courtyard, and there are some brick pavers within that courtyard. So our plan is to try to utilize those brick pavers to create an outdoor patio area that would kind of wrap around the brick wall and go underneath the train trestle to create some outdoor seating areas for the residents of the building. That would be accessed from a door located on the north elevation of the building. The way the floor plans have been designed, we tried to keep open lofted spaces by the arched windows. So when you look at the west elevation of the building, you'll see that we have open living rooms where the arched windows are located, with stairs going up to a loft bedroom above. So this plan shows, again, those lofted bedrooms that overlook the areas where the arched windows are. And on the eastern third of the building, on that section of the building, we'll be creating additional floors in that space. So there will be a level that will come in off of that main entrance below the second floor. We'll be installing a set of stairs that take you up to the second floor, where we have 2 additional units. And there's a lofted bedroom above the stair in this location on the second floor. As far as the elevations, not really a lot of changes to the elevations other than the requirement that we add egress windows. And we will be submitting this, we have submitted it to the State Preservation Office. This will be a historic tax credit project. So it'll be reviewed by the State Preservation Office and the National Park Service. So one of the items I wanted to discuss with the ARB was really whether we were showing casement windows to create the egress, but I guess my feeling was that perhaps an awning window might be more appropriate for this building in this location. So when we open it up for comments, I'd like your input on that. But really just modifying 2 windows on the primary facade, replacing those with aluminum windows with true divided lights that will match closely the profiles of the steel windows, with the exception of course, the operating sash itself will have a wider profile around the frame of the operating sash. On the south elevation, the existing door and window combination that exists will be modified. Again, a casement window is shown here. In this case, in these arched windows, after reviewing this with Jack, we kind of felt that the single casement window on the side really throws off the symmetry of the arched window. So I think there's really a couple of options to explore. One would be to do a casement on both sides, or perhaps do something with the center sash and do an awning window in the bottom half of that center sash. Again, an item of discussion with the ARB members. The west elevation, thankfully there are no required changes to that elevation. Again, these large arched windows are in the living rooms, the lofted living rooms, so that's an open space. There's no egress window requirements for these windows, so they can remain as is. And on the north elevation, kind of a similar situation that we had on the south elevation. They're showing a single casement window on either side. Again, either suggesting doing one on both sides of the center sash, or perhaps doing an awning in the center sash itself. The door that's shown in this location is called out to be infilled. Right, if you remember from that photo, and I can go back to it too if you want to see it, that opening was enlarged at one point. I'm not sure exactly why, whether it was to bring in equipment that didn't fit through the existing opening is the most likely reason. But we are going to infill that opening to its original size and install the doors and the transom above the door to match the existing door and window combination on the right-hand side. There was a discussion about replacing the doors. A lot of these doors, actually all of these doors are steel doors. They're just a single sheet of steel with a steel frame around the sheet steel. And they're not real weather tight. So we are going to be looking at the possibility of replacing some of these doors. Where the doors are located in a bedroom, we will be able to keep the existing steel door in place and seal it closed, and then construct a insulated wood wall below the windows in the door, so that from the exterior it'll still be the original door, but from the interior there will be a section of wall that will be hiding the door from the interior and providing and the combination of sealing it, providing the weather tightness and also the insulation of the door. That's it. So I'll go back and open it up for comments, questions.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll go through everybody, and then obviously I know since it's a workshop, it's more informal, but we'll start through the lineup and then circle back around for folks as needed. Ms. Aubrey?
Thank you for the presentation. I don't see any archaeological issues for this particular proposal, so I look forward to hearing my colleagues' comments on the architecture.
Mr. Burns, are you able to comment on this one, or have you recused yourself?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has identified this as a potential federal tax incentive project, and because of that, much as I would like to comment, I cannot. I will recuse myself.
All right, I had a feeling as such. Ms. Wan?
Mr. Chairman, I actually don't have any comments.
All right, fair enough at this time. Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes, I think the very modest changes to the exterior of the building are warranted and kind of in the spirit of what we're here for, to preserve as much as we can. You know, I think the reworking of the windows and creating the egress, all necessary items, and all could be carefully handled. You have several options for that. And looking at this north elevation, maybe because it's late in the night, but that window fenestration pattern kind of reminding me of happy hour there below the tower. I don't know if anybody else sees the same thing I'm seeing. Looks like a bottle of wine to me.
Looks like a bottle of wine, yes.
But no, I think what you're doing is the correct approach, and you know, I'm wishing you success, and like to see the final version of this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kalinsky. Let's see, that moves us to Ms. Murray.
I very much agree with Mr. Kalinsky's comments. And I appreciate the sensitive approach that you've taken to the changes that are going to be much needed so people can actually live in the building comfortably.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Orr.
Thank you for taking on this very challenging project. This is such an icon, and it's really an important building, and you seem to have a handle on how to do it. So I thank you for that.
All right, Mr. Klumpy.
No comment. I know these guys will do a great job on it, and I'm very happy to see it being repurposed and used. I've toured the building. It's an amazing building inside. Reminds me of Mike's American Grill. I wish a restaurant could have happened there, but like I said, it's a tough location, but residential use makes a lot of sense for this. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues' comments. I think it's good to see it being put to use. And obviously we'll need some more particulars as it moves forward, but I support the intention behind the project. Thank you.
So I agree with several of my colleagues. It's frustrating that we could not find a commercial entity that could use this building. I frequently had a mindset that we would see something put on top of the tower to light up a little bit or something. You know, I kind of was hoping it could be some kind of central place, but you're right. The parking and access is a very restrictive factor. I think from my perspective, I agree you're limited by what you can do with the windows and the egress requirements. So I think a lot of that's going to be actual profiles and selections so that we can get to a material and appropriate replacement that doesn't, you know, really stand out, but doesn't also, you know, lend itself so falsely. which I think you all have been rather successful in doing in other projects and other. This is something that's coming rather easy now from the amount of reviews we're going through here. I would wonder about some of the lighting requirements around this too, and what might be happening here, because it is a very uniquely situated and placed building. As you point out, it has the trestle, which I do think is another unique feature that hopefully is going to still be able to be utilized and maintained in a way that isn't going to cause an issue, because I know it also has it also probably doesn't meet a lot of safety requirements too. But I think this presents a unique space for someone to have a residence because of the building it's going to be in. So I think from my perspective, a lot of it's just going to be seeing those finer details when they come in. The window placements that you're suggesting and the fashions that are being suggested right now don't come across in any way as insensitive to the building itself. Beyond that, I think I agree with Mr. Zellman that it's going to be more about seeing what's coming in. And I agree with the door replacements, having walked around the building on the areas with the steel doors. I mean, we're working in situations where it's almost just a straight piece of steel in some places. So where we can save, we can, and where we can't, obviously, we should try as best we can to replicate and with sensitivity. And I think I'm happy to hear that this is also being shopped through VDHR, because I would be very interested to hear their thoughts on it as well. The only other thing that jumps in my mind is how, and this may be, it's obviously it's interior focused, but only in a very minor way, in the sense that what will the building look like from the outside when you have occupied units in it and people's houses going in, and you're seeing into people's living rooms and spaces. What kind of geometry is happening in with the interiors, and how will that affect a view from the outside? I'm trying to rationalize myself with that. I've always thought about this building as a commercial building. I didn't think about it as a residential space until, I saw how long you guys had it out on the market looking for interest. So I think kind of scratching my head around that a little bit more is going to be something I'm going to have to wrangle with. I don't know if any other members have any other comments or any other items to bring up. Not seeing any fists shaking or hands raising. And obviously, again, Jack, if you or your staff have any other questions you want to glean from us, I know this is an old hat for y'all for coming back and forth to us on this, but if there's anything else in particular you want our feedback on, please don't hold back.
Sure. I think we are curious to know if there are any opinions about the awning window versus the casement.
Well, before I jump in, I don't know if any of our other architects have any opinions that they want to add, or any other member for that matter.
Yeah, Mr. Daniels, if I can.
Absolutely, Mr. Kalinsky.
If I can comment, if I could ask the applicant, do you have an elevation that shows or depicts an awning window at any particular location? Or are you suggesting that's what the window for the central portion of the larger round-headed windows?
Well, if I start with this existing elevation, you'll see that there's a horizontal mullion halfway, dividing the window vertically into two sections. And I guess my feeling was that an awning window occupying the lower half of this sash would probably look better than an asymmetrical approach that we're showing here, with the operating sash represented by the dash triangle being on one half, or I guess in this case it'd be 60% of the window. So that would be my suggestion for this window. And then on the arched windows, either doing a casement window on both sides, because again the sash is going to be a little bit thicker on the operating sash, or simply doing a awning window in the center, in the bottom half of that sash.
Got it. So I think in the condition where you first pointed out at the lower level there, I think the awning window would be the preferable way to handle that. It's just more natural to have that center mullion be the hinge point. but where you have the ability to have the symmetry on the windows with the round transom heads above them, I would be fine with seeing a casement window on each side, but I wouldn't preclude you from using an awning window in the center sash in the same fashion that you're using down below. But I think you have the opportunity to mix and match those types. You don't necessarily have to hold to one or the other.
Sure.
I would agree with Mr. Kolinsky on this, that I think in my mind, and I think you clarified in the 60-40 is a little bit more helpful there, understanding that I don't want to create a weird asymmetrical look going on that's going to draw attention to the purpose of the window. If you can, I think you have the flexibility to do either option, particularly if you're supporting the symmetry that's already found in these. And yeah, I pretty much wholeheartedly concur, Mr. Kolinsky, on this. I don't know if any other members have any other observations they want to add. Right. Seeing none, I think we're giving you guys a lot of latitude here, but I think recognizing the needs that you have to meet, I'd rather you explore those options and then come back to us saying this is why we thought this was preferred over an awning or versus a casement to us. And I think you could easily make the case one way or another.
Okay, thank you. And we will be, before we come back, we will have comments, at least from the State Preservation Office and hopefully the Park Service as well. So we'll incorporate any of their comments into the drawings when we come back for our approval submission.
Okay. Well then, wonderful. Thanks so much for coming, and thanks for riding to the later parts of our hour here, or a few hours. We always appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again in the coming months.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see, Laura, I believe that takes us to the end of our workshop sessions and brings us into we have no presentations, and brings us into board and staff items, of which we have quite a few.
Do you want to start with the budget? Or
Yeah.
Sorry, the payment of secretary and review of minutes? Sorry.
Sure, let's do review and action of approval of previous month's minutes. So I would look if any members have any comments that they have on the prior meeting minutes, which would have been from our July meeting. It feels weird to have that recess there. And Laura, I don't know if you've gotten any comments from anyone as well.
I did not receive any edits to the minutes from July.
All right. Well, if there are no member comments, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes and pay the recording secretary accordingly. And then someone let John know that he is welcome back. Okay, he's got thumbs up there, so he's back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zellman.
I'd make a motion to approve the July 2021 meeting minutes and to pay the recording secretary.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Mr. Burns.
Can we also close the viewing
Yes.
screen for Mr. Voss so we can see everybody?
I was going to be right on that, John. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. All right. And now I can see everybody. Wonderful. Great to see you all at the same time. That's why it's so hard to walk through that lineup otherwise. So we move on to treasurer's report.
Sure, treasurer's report. We have $27,249.12 in the budget for this month. The next two items with the report wanted to bring up, and I think we need to do a motion on each of these, Chris, was the ARB approval of the National Trust for Historic Preservation Forum membership renewal. So that was $250 for the year. And then also the approval of the registration for the Past Forward National Trust of Historic Preservation Conference in November this year. which was also $250.
All right, so that's a total of $500, correct?
Correct.
And so for context, because we were in recess in August, Mr. Zellman and I gave Laura permission to proceed with those funds so that we could secure the registrations and the renewals. But we do need a formal motion from the board recognizing that we have authorized that payment after the fact.
I can make one.
Ms. Murray.
I move that the Architecture Review Board approve $250 to renew the membership in the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and also approve $250 for registration for the National Trust conference this fall. Somebody will fill in the right name, we can have that.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right, move on to our administrative items. Laura, Laura, did you have anything else, or were we on to that one?
No, I was going to go on to the next one. That's
sure. So personnel updates.
Personal updates. So wanted to introduce you to our new ARB administrator, who you all know. It's Denise Dressel. She'll be taking on the ARB as well as continuing the senior Heritage Resources Planner duties and History Commission for a couple months until we can get somebody on. So she's going to be very busy for the next couple months, but we'll all be helping in that transition. So welcome on board, Denise. I know you're not a new face, but we're excited to have you, I'm sure. Denise, did you want to say anything? Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody. I look forward to working with you all. I also look forward to finding a replacement for the History Commission. So I'm only running one board a month, but the History Commission has kept me very busy with all of their committees while we've been on virtual land. So it'll be busy. Everybody bear with me, but I'll try to keep up.
All right. Thank you so much, Denise. We're looking forward to having you in that new role. And that doing double duty with the History Commission. You've got quite the plate that you have to work with, but we're happy to have you. Right.
And then on that same note, we're starting the hiring process for Denise's old position very shortly. So
going to ask that, and if you could share it with us, Laura, when it does, or tell us where we can find the listing so that we might share it widely with our circles.
So we're actually able to use the listing that we did for the ARB administrator position.
Oh, wonderful.
So we're using that same cert list. For the
Great, even better. That's better news that you don't even have to go back out.
Right. So that was great news. Yeah. So yes, it's actually closed, but we will be hiring another planner too in the next coming months as well. So I will let the ARB know when that comes out.
Wonderful. All right, ARB remote policy.
Okay, so just wanted to bring this up for discussion. Nothing has changed since the July 2021 draft that we had, and I'm happy to bring that up. Before I do that, though, I just wanted to say there were concerns about the amount of excused absences and things like that. That policy was drafted by our county attorney and can be modified per the boards and commissions, the specific boards and commission. However, I didn't get much information or support about changing the number of how many times people can miss a meeting with an excused absence, because I think the notion was that we, how did she put it, that we are public servants. But to that point, we can discuss it more if there's really some pushback. Let me pull it up. And while I'm doing that, there is no discussion now about the boards and committee, or I'm sorry, the state, the declaration of emergency for the county is what's continuing to allow us to all meet virtually. And there is no discussion about that being lifted. We've been told that hopefully we'll get like a 30-day notice that that's going to happen so that we can pivot relatively quickly. But as you all know in your professional lives as well, my new joke is everything I say has an asterisk at the end that it could change next week based on new information that we receive. So just kind of bear with us on that. But Denise is well versed in this, dealing with History Commission, and so it'll just be the same application to the ARB as well. But that being said, there's no, it kind of like bubbled up in July that we'd be going back in person, and then I think we've had the Delta variant come in, so it's kind of pulled back a little bit on that. But I haven't heard any discussion in a week, which is really rare because usually it's a discussion every other week about whether or not we're going back in person. So,
well, and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of our discussion about this was one, because of the potential Holland Hills meeting and wanting to have folks in person. And also this kind of relates to the next item, which was that we're going to be making some potential changes to our bylaws, particularly regarding 106, but also regarding absences for members. And so there was a little bit of a, do we want to make sure these happen in sync with one another? And hearing, though, just my general reaction, hearing that the county's not urging us to come back in, it's my general impression that we don't have a fire under us to make sure this is adopted at the moment, and we can continue to practice cautiously on this.
The only caveat, though, is that if they lift the county declaration of emergency, we will not have a policy in place. So everybody from the ARB will be expected to meet in person because we won't have that adopted, I call it quorum in person, that we would be allowed to have with the electronic policy. So that's just the caveat if we don't adopt one, or if we kind of want to wait and see month by month, or until we get that notice. I can't promise it's going to be 30 days, so we might have to meet in person and then we can adopt the policy and then the following meeting. That can be an option too, if we're really pushing back. If we don't have huge issue with it, I would recommend adopting it with any changes that we may have, just so we have it in place. And Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the History Commission has already adopted one. She's shaking her head, yes. So it would be good, I think, on our behalf to have this, although of course I do recognize, let's not do it until we have to, but
well, I think I'm merely just stating that when the issue came up for this meeting, and Jason and I were brought to our attention that we did not need to make it an in-person meeting, we were inclined to say that would be the way we'd want to go. But I'm not against the idea of adopting a policy to be prepared for that reality, because eventually we will be going back in at some point.
Right.
But I would and obviously entertain any members' comments or feedback on it. I know, Elise, you have experience with this already, so any wisdom you would want to drop on us about that from the History Commission side is always welcome.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I agree with Laura's point that it'd probably be practical to do it now. And down the road, if it somehow conflicts with your bylaw changes, you can always fine tune things.
Any other observations from any members?
Yeah, this is Joe. I was just wondering, once we go back in person, will there ever still be an option to do virtual as a member or member of the public?
Yes.
Oh. So we will always have a hybrid, then, you're saying?
I believe so. I believe so.
So with that said, is as a member, if I decide I'd rather come home, I'd rather be home for a meeting because of X reasons or whatever, would I be labeled as not attending or attending? And does that go against one of my excused?
So that gets into the various reasons that a member could ask to attend virtually that I think
right.
Laura is highlighting. There are several different reasons one of which is just a personal reason, but there are other ones of care of a family member or a temporary or permanent disability. But yeah, Laura's highlighting the particular text regarding the personal matter one as is described.
So the personal matter, I mean, so basically how it would work is you would be coordinating, I'm going to put Denise's name in there, what do I say myself, but Denise and Chris and Jason, just telling them, picking one of these reasons due to 4B, I will be virtually attending the meeting. The issue is that we still have to have 6 members in person wherever we're physically meeting. So the earlier you can let us know if you're going to be out of town and you still want to participate, that type of thing, the better, because if we don't have a quorum in person, then we'll have to cancel the meeting. So if you weren't able to make it, you would just request to Chris and Denise and Jason that for this reason, I will not be attending. I would like to participate virtually. Now the 4C that I've highlighted there, it says remote participation to the personal matter is limited each calendar year to 2 meetings or 25%. So you actually get 3 meetings with the ARB because we meet once 12 times a year. But
actually, excuse me, we're meeting 11 times a year. Aren't we doing the August month off?
Are we adopting the August recess? I don't know, Joe. I don't know.
It's up to you all.
I think it's right. But not to
It's
be
up to
lazy.
you all. It's very quiet during the month, and a lot of other BACs take a recess. I know History Commission does not, but the Board of Supervisors, History Planning Commission definitely does. So it's up to all discretion if you want to.
I think the most important thing is, Joe, though, it is the quorum side of it that Laura pointed out, is that we always have to have that 6. And this is the section where I had the most concerns too, which was because it has the on or before the day of the meeting. On the day of the meeting might be a little too late of a notice to, or I suppose if someone lets me know, it would be, well, we would not have a quorum otherwise. That was one of my concerns. And the only other one I brought up previously was the personal matter. I didn't want to get too much into what was that personal matter. It says in the 3A personal matter and identifies with specificity the nature of the personal matter. I don't know if I really feel like we need to go into that level.
I don't think so either. I don't think so. They said they did privacy, not to be coy about it, but I just think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And Laura, I think it's also in number 4A too. It says, I think merely a member contacting me and saying I've had a personal issue to come up, and if they proceed to inform me of the details of that, that's at their discretion. That I wouldn't, I
don't understand why someone being virtual would not count toward quorum.
That's right. I agree with Ms. Orr.
That's a county attorney question with FOIA requirements. Sorry. Okay, Jason, go for it.
Yes, I was going to say, Jason.
I think I can answer that question. Kay, the answer to that question is, we do the motions at the beginning of this meeting that says because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we can meet virtually because of FOIA and public access. And so that's why we're required to be in person for quorum purposes. Once we don't have that special exemption anymore, we're required under FOIA to be physically present and available to the public.
So let me ask you this. So if someone from the public is commenting to the meeting, their comments do not exist because it is not counted because they're virtual?
No, because they're not a voting member.
Meaning if a public member has some comments on a presentation or something or whatever, or even when the presenters are virtual, they are not counted as part of the meeting.
They're not making a motion, Joe.
Okay.
We are.
Okay.
I think, or Jason, I think the real thing is about us as the board operating in a.
That's right. That's right. The only other thing I wanted to add in listening to this conversation is I agree with Chris's concerns about it being, before or on the day of the meeting. And I see the policy is up here. I don't have it in front of me at the moment. but Laura or Chris, I don't know if there's language in there about, if we have to have 6 people present, we're an 11-person board. What if 8 people say, oh, I want to be remote? Are we doing it like first come, first served basis, or, how would we do that? Because if we do have people who are available, but maybe for one reason or another would prefer virtual, again, without getting into personal reasons or whatever it may be, I think we have to have some sort of way to say, well, we've excused this many people, but we have to ensure our quorum, so we have to have you be physically present. And I'm not sure exactly how to do
I thought about that too, Jason, about how do we track that in a way that's reasonable. Laura, I think you were gonna.
Yeah, I was going to say it kind of touches into that, but I think it's at the discretion of the chair. It just says the chair shall promptly notify the requesting member whether or not their request is in conformance with this policy. But I think to your point, I'm wondering if it says early. Yeah, it says earlier quorum must be physically assembled at the primary or central meeting location. So that has to happen before we even get to the remote piece. So, sorry, I keep moving around, but I think that since it states that quorum before, and Jason, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but that then it says the person remaining remotely.
Well, and I think Jason's getting at less about, we recognize for the meeting to happen, we have to have a physical quorum in person. But it's more about how do we manage that. One side of it is obviously it is a volunteer board, and at this point, because of the way FOIA exists, there's always going to be an expectation for us to meet in person once this emergency situation passes. So the ability to meet and participate remotely is, in all intents and purposes, beyond the first 2 items for disability or family member conditions, a luxury. And we have to treat it like that as of right now, in my personal opinion. It's a nice luxury to have. And I think because we particularly have board members who do travel across the county, I think it's a very nice thing to present, particularly if, folks do come in and we do have ability to allow folks to participate remotely. I think we can accommodate that. I would obviously personally, as your chair right now, always want to accommodate someone with a condition or a disability issue or a family member issue prior to just a personal reason, because that is, in my mind, order of priority to allow someone to participate remotely over whatever one's personal issue might be, regardless of what it is. I don't want to know about it, because I don't want to have to provide any commentary on it as the chairman.
Right. And Chris, if I made the only thing that I would add to that, to the extent that anyone has angst about it affecting attendance policy and the excused absences, remember, I think an excused absence is also at the discretion under our policy. We have the ability to grant an excused absence. And so if you're excused, I think you're still okay. And I think, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think where it's more, focused at maybe if there are individuals who are, not participatory, not communicative, not, missing a lot of meetings, that's a bigger problem. And
yes, you're right, Jason. I think we can focus on that in the updates to any other finer updates to the bylaws. And I agree with Elisa's recommendation that we do get something in place so that we could start doing this hybrid method when we have to. And I think part of the earlier items, the temporary or medical condition, are partially in the new environment we're in. Let's say you might potentially be sick, and now you could still potentially participate from your home if you wanted to, instead of potentially bringing in a situation that now we are much more cognizant about. And you're right, at the discretion of the chair. And so I think if you can't attend, period, then you can just have an excused absence from the meeting. The key thing is, once we do get back to in person, we have to have 6 folks there. I think a lot of this might be something that, in my mind, at the end of every meeting the month before, members could let us know if there is a constraint that might require them to participate remotely. And that was kind of my initial thought is, like today, at the end of this meeting, we would have any members let us know, I would need to or would request to attend virtually, or I am going to be there in person, so that we'd be able to already assess, do we have a physical quorum, and you know, obviously that could change up to the day of because someone could request it if we didn't have anyone saying so.
Chris, what if we changed that first sentence here to honor before the day of the meeting as soon as, not as soon as possible, but as soon as possible, and at any point before the meeting begins, you know, as soon as you're aware of that issue, you can do it. I'm wondering if that's something, or we just change it to at any point before the meeting begins. But well, there's that point. And then I will say too, if we adopt this tonight and we want to make another change or something's not working, we can revise the policy just to have something in place for the inevitable comeback.
Well, I think we're getting into the mechanics of how the policy is implemented, and less about what needs to be in the policy language itself. Because in my mind, right now, the next meeting we're having is going to be virtual again, is my understanding, because there is no change at this moment. But when that happens, my intention would be, the first question would be to ask of the members who plans to attend in person and who might be asking to attend remotely. And then as currently as chair, I bear the burden of kind of processing those asks. And I might have to say, well, we have 4 folks that want to attend virtually. We don't have enough to attend in person. We need someone to, you know, relinquish that request and see if they can attend in person, depending upon the circumstances. And as your chair, what I'm saying is I would prioritize the medical as well as family member concerns over a personal reason as a priority there to maintain a quorum. But obviously I look for input from the rest of y'all on this, because it's me and Denise that are going to be handling the requests on it. But this again is not something that's going to happen right away, because we're not going back right now yet.
But if we do it now, it's one less thing we have to.
Yes, no, I agree. I'm agreeing about approving it. But what I'm saying is there's not much risk right now, because I see us meeting in virtually next month. I mean, heck, they're not even talking about me going back to my office till December or January still. So,
Chris, I think you need to prioritize commute time.
That is a.
I'm kidding.
I mean, but it's a fair
commute
point.
Commute time, factoring in rush hour.
And I think this does kind of marry into another topic that John brought up separately in the recess period about the future of applications, particularly if we get other HODs, particularly in the Mount Vernon district like Holland Hills or Holmes Runs Acres. Can we provide ability to support applicants, you know, submitting virtually and presenting applications virtually in a way to be both responsive to applicants that may have access to challenges? And I think that's something that we want to think about too in the future, because I think if we're going to allow members to participate remotely, then perhaps we could allow, just like we're doing now, an applicant to present remotely, as long as we have the technology to support it.
I think we're leaning in that direction.
And I know we're not there yet, but I just want to bring that out there that was suggested. And I thought, you know, look, COVID's changing a lot of things, and let's try to look at the positives for what it could change in making meetings accessible to anyone.
I don't know let me say this. From a technological standpoint, that's just going to be difficult, but it's just one more thing we have to fold into our going back to our meetings. And I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's a process of ironing out those steps. So I think it's doable. It's just a matter of, you know, working with our IT. Like, can we get public at, like, in the first few months might be a little bit difficult, but I think it's something we could move towards, just until we kind of get our feet under us of what the new kind of meeting setup is going to be.
All right. No, and thanks, Laura.
Okay.
I guess if there's no other input on this, I mean, these were the only 2 revisions we had, which we're going to strike a requirement for someone to go into detail on their personal matters, which I saw a lot of head nods saying that there didn't seem to be any objections to that. If that's acceptable, then I would entertain a motion that Laura has presented to adopt this policy as modified, so that we have one in place in the unlikely but possible reality that come tomorrow we suddenly are going to be required to meet in person.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the ARB adopt the proposed Fairfax County Architecture Review Board policy for participation in meetings by electronic communication as tonight modified.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, it is adopted. All right, thank you very much, everybody. And whenever this does come into effect, again, I think now that it's in place, if someone does want to avail themselves of this the day it does, just let me know. Everyone should have my email address and my number. I'm working from home nonstop, so I'm here all the time. I try to make myself super accessible on that. Also, copy Denise so she's aware of the request too, and we'll handle it when we get to it. All right, Laura,
Okay,
do you
great.
want to
Okay,
talk
great.
about bylaws?
Sure. So on a related note, somewhat related note, the second piece of this was bylaws, and the two items that we had kind of had hanging out were attendance policy. Let's see if I can share my screen again, and the section 106 piece, and how we were going to handle that. So let me see if I can share my screen again, just so you all can be on the same page. Nope. Okay, there we go. I still hate WebEx, even after all this. It's just a terrible setup. Anyway, okay. So member attendance. So Chris drafted these at before the last meeting, and we didn't have comments from the county attorney's office yet. But she had very minor comments to add, Chris. So it wasn't much different from what you had proposed before. So, the highlights, and Chris, I don't know if you want to walk through them, but, one thing they recommended, the county attorney recommended, we talked about the attendance. Okay, let's talk about, so the attendance first, if we want to talk about that. So the excuse policy, we just kind of went through that. So it's a little bit more, the policy for the virtual is a little bit more detailed than this. And we can add that, in accordance with the virtual meeting policy or something like that in our bylaws, if that's something you want to add. I'm not sure if that's something you want to add, but at 5.6, that's the first kind of attendance at the current language and the proposed revision. So,
and I was going to say, for context, the big thing because if you see our current one is just that the chairman would approve whether it is excused or unexcused. It's like, okay, that's wonderful. But we took this a little further this time to work into not only that, but allowing members to provide comments in advance of meetings so they could be included in the record. John's done this in the past. Ms. Juan has done this in the past where even we've had members before we had such a policy. Mr. Bierce and Mr. Mobley have provided comments in the past prior and when they cannot attend a meeting. And I think that is while it's the way this was worded was not requiring that one have to provide a comment, but that we would seek one if you had any. That if you have comments to share on submissions, convey them to the administrator and the chairperson so that they can be added to the record. This is particularly helpful for members who obviously have an expertise or a background in something, and we would love to hear your insight on it. I think Michelle, obviously, from an archaeological perspective, if you had something to share but couldn't that be at a meeting, we would always welcome your comments to the record so that we can make sure an applicant knows that expectation. I could go through every one of you and why each one of you would have a valuable insight on this, but that was the other idea. And then it says,
Chris, the way it reads now, absences without written comments provided in advance of the meeting will be determined unexcused. That implies they're mandatory.
Right.
I see.
The last sentence of that section.
Right.
Well, the expectation for me would have been that if a member had comments, so that would need to be changed.
Yes, thank you. That's the only thing that jumped out at me is problematic as far as I was concerned.
And also it says, the next sentence up, must provide written comments, blah, blah, blah. If, you know,
Well, and I think there's a way for that to be crafted in the sense of if a member has comments or something to that effect, must be provided in advance of the meeting. There you go. That fixes that. And then the third paragraph focused on the number of absences. And again, this is unexcused absences, not excused absences. If someone has an excused absence, then this is not applying. This was focused on unexcused absences over a 12-month period. And it basically, in our current bylaws, we have no mechanism where a member to not be present and unexcused, what we would have to do in the essence of which we just had an absentee member. The idea was that this would then elevate this to a process where we'd actually try to remedy that. And in the most sensitive way possible, basically, that, you know, if we get to that point, we're going to start working with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors and basically begin a discussion about, you know, what can we do if the member is unable to attend. I don't know if any members had any comments on this one. Okay. And then Laura shared the example from the History Commission, but this is
Just as a by the by, and Denise can correct me if things changed, but we did not want the removal section in our bylaws. And Denise told us that the county attorney's office tacitly, by not deleting it, indicated that we had to keep it.
I understand.
The committee was vehemently opposed. And Denise can correct the record if I got it wrong.
I was just looking up the last bylaw, the adopted bylaws, to see whether it was in there, whether it ended up in there or not. So give me a moment and I'll.
Your statement to the commission was that you didn't ask directly, but because the county attorney left it in, you assumed that we had to keep it. That doesn't really matter.
No, and I'm thinking, just looking, I'm rereading that text, and that's why I kind of like the tactic I took in ours, which was in the revisions I proposed, because it didn't come across as a outright removal tactic. It was a level of someone's not coming, then the position is vacant.
Right, and that both of those sections were drafted by the county attorney, because ours kind of totally got rewritten by the county attorney's office. We had the original three meetings, and you were in trouble. We didn't have the second portion. We did not want Article 7.
Apparently, I didn't get as much county attorney heat on mine for some reason. Okay, well, right now it sounds like we're okay with the revisions to our section as proposed with ours. So I think we should just, you know, History Commission is the History Commission, and the other one is the Section 106 one, which we all know is the perennial one that came up partially on the soapstone situation. And really, this was trying to craft a way that we would notify the Board of Supervisors and the appropriate supervisor that we wish to participate in the 106 process. Laura, I don't know if you said again that there were not a lot of changes added to this one, correct? Laura?
Talking a blue streak and I'm muted, so that doesn't help me. One of the comments was, look at the History Commission comments, and then they said, well, maybe yours is better. So leave it as it. So it was like this back and forth. So that was the major comment. It was for the section, not even for the the attendance, it was for the section 106. But if I understand, I think that the History Commission, had a policy first and now has, in their bylaws as adopted.
No,
Is that
no,
wrong? Okay.
we have a policy. Our bylaws.
We have a policy.
reflect
Okay.
the policy.
So they don't even have, yeah.
And our policy was crafted with the county attorney's office, so I find it amusing they like Chris's better.
I think it's just a different method. And also the county attorney, right? So what could happen is we could all say, yes, we're good with this, and then it gets elevated to another county attorney before it goes to approval to the board, right? And then we're back here again, getting more comments. But really, that was the comment was, here's the History Commission language. Here's what we've talked about before. But then the county attorney I worked with said, your setup might be a little bit better for numerous reasons. I shouldn't go into that, but it was just, it's a different setup that might work a little bit better.
I honestly think both are perfectly reasonable approaches to try to basically say we will let the Board of Supervisors, the county attorney, if that's appropriate, and the appropriate supervisor know. I honestly, in the situation, you all know I wear another hat where I work with the agency that wrote the regulations for this process. So in my mind, I tried to be very clear about all the avenues in which we could participate. That's really about the tact I took. I made it very clear that it doesn't preclude the county from participating if they want to participate in their own fashion, which is happening in several consultations where the county takes part in its own way. And I also tried to build it so that we could, sign onto an agreement as a concurring party, which is the only way we would sign. And I made it clear so that the chairperson or vice chair could sign, because at this current moment, I cannot sign any 106 agreement as on behalf of the ARB.
Chris, the ARB can't sign a memorandum of agreement. Only the county executive.
It depends on who they authorize, Elise.
Right.
Really, but I don't think they've ever authorized anybody other than the Park Authority.
Oh, no, that's not the case.
Don't we?
Yeah, the current soapstone agreement is deferred to, the authority to sign is delegated to the director of the Fairfax County Department of Transportation.
Okay, that's a third county entity. It's to none of the appointed bodies.
And I'm not talking about a signing in the capacity of a signatory or an invited signatory. We would be signing as a concurring party saying we support the terms of this agreement, which means we have no rights or powers under the agreement other than the fact that we concur with it. And actually, what I'll tell you all is that signing as a concurring party is beneficial because it gives us leverage in dispute resolution. If we feel like the agreement is not being implemented properly, we can raise a dispute with the agency that is implementing it. So, and I have it's in there saying concurring party, and county attorney didn't strike it. So and this is just me as my perspective on the regulations. As a board, obviously we have the Board of Supervisors to respond to as appointed us and assigned us, but we do have a role as a consulting party if we are allowed to be one. And so I didn't want us to have any of those rights removed. So I felt like what I put in here gave us all that flexibility while still being polite and courteous to any, supervisor who may want to know that we're commenting on this.
Chris, I have a question with regard to notifying the County Board of Supervisors. I have no problem with that, but what authorities do we have, or what action should we take if the county tells us to butt out, as is the case with the One University Plaza building? Do we still convey our dismay or our official position to the Board of Supervisors through the clerk? I mean, what would the process be for us to comment to the county about what our position is?
So, but Laura, obviously you can give your thoughts on it. My perspective is if we as a board have been told that we should not participate, then we may, as a board, we couldn't convey comments in the way this is listed here. But we could still convey our comments during a meeting and share them with county staff and state that this is the board ARB's comments on this issue. And we would recommend that they be considered when the county conveys its comments on this issue in the 106 process. So that'd be one way for us to obliquely go about it.
Okay, but isn't part of our responsibility to provide advice to the county board of supervisors?
Yes.
Do we have to go through staff, or can we just write a letter and say, hey?
I believe we could do a letter too. I don't think there's anything that stops us from doing that. But
okay, if we can do that, I'm okay with the current way that it's written.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything stopping us from writing a letter to the board of supervisor at any point about an issue. We've done it plenty of times on many an item, whether 106 or not. But if there is a situation in my mind in which the board of supervisors asks us not to participate as a consulting party and the county will participate, I think we have several avenues where we could convey our observations on the undertaking, the effects, both through county staff, who Laura or Denise at this point would be conveying that in any reports to the county, but also we could do it via letter too.
Okay.
Laura, you got any, or is that kind of hit what you were going to go after?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that if the board says to us, you can't be a consulting party, we would send our comments directly to, I guess with Soapstone, CDOT, right? We would send our comments to them, conveying to them what we feel is appropriate. I don't think that stops us from writing to the board or appealing to your district supervisor with your concerns about the issue. I think the bigger concern came out of appealing above the county, I guess, and I'm really bad with the wording in section 106, but like the point of contact or program manager for the section 106 project, and going above them and appealing directly to VDHR. That I think is the concern, because I think at the point where the county is the consulting party, they want to have the county respond in one, however it determines to respond, the county responding as one voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the avenue for us to tell the board of supervisors our opinion is still open.
Yeah, I believe we leave the administrative record wide open for ourselves still to convey to the board of supervisors our thoughts. Whether or not they are taken forward is another item. But as you know, John, there are other avenues and other parties who could easily pick up some of those concerns if we don't too. So I think that's part of the frustration that came out of Soapstone was, while we raised some issues, there were plenty of other folks raising them as well. There was a larger problem at stake there, not necessarily the forms that were being followed.
Right.
And I just want to make sure for clarification, because Leanna asked this when she reviewed, that we are not seeking the board of, are we seeking the board of supervisors approval to be a consulting party, right? Or comments?
For what?
Oh, seeking their approval of our comments?
Yes, before we send them back.
I did not think we were doing that. My intention was to write as we would be notifying them of those so they are aware. If we were going to do that, then it would just be the same thing as just giving them to the county and letting them convey our position.
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret it as well. We're telling them we're going to do it, and if they don't scream, we go ahead and do whatever we're going to do.
Yes.
That's fine. I just wanted it on record. No, seriously, because I wanted to get clarification on that.
Well, and I think it's particularly important given the timeframes that occur in 106 that a mother may I process would not be conducive to us being able to provide comments if we wanted to.
Right.
Given that most agencies ask for 30 days, regardless of what the time frame is, even if we're just doing an agreement document, if we have to find a way to approve those comments when the board of supervisors doesn't always meet, it becomes too chaotic. I think the key thing is we want to make sure they're always informed as to where we're going.
That's fine. It's fine.
Well, then I guess that's, I see only minor revisions on these. I'd entertain a motion to propose to adopt, or I guess, Laura, could we do that, or is they now have to go? What's the next step here?
I actually would defer to Denise because I know she took the History Commission. I think we make a motion to send them to the board for the review as a board item.
So I
Denise, I'm
think you
not
have
sure.
to make a motion to adopt your changes. So you're making a motion to adopt your revised bylaws now. And then those revised bylaws go to the board for their approval.
Okay, so we would make a motion to adopt these revised, these revisions to our bylaws in sections 5, 6, and section, which was the next section? Are we and then new Article 6, 3. A new Article 6. Okay. That would be what we'd be asking, is that we would make a motion to adopt them and that they be brought to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration.
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. I would entertain someone making said motion if they feel comfortable in doing so.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zellman.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the revised bylaws with respect to the revisions to section 5.6 and adopting the new section 6.3 and have the revised bylaws presented to the Board of Supervisors for their approval.
I will second that.
Seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. We're being quite efficient today, folks.
I know, very proud of you guys. Thank you.
All right.
We can go ahead to the next.
Yeah, go right ahead, save that, and then Laura will move on to discussion, updates, and reports. And we'll try to get through these, hopefully, so we can get folks, wrap folks up rather reasonably this evening. So,
Okay.
exceptional design rewards. Kay.
Yeah, so August the 25th at 10 a.m., we had 7 jury members and myself gathered virtually to discuss 12 different submissions. That was a little bit lower than we normally have, but they were able to choose a few to give awards to. And that will be coming up shortly. They'll be having presentations of some nature. I don't know if they'll do it by video this year or in person, probably video, but I don't know how that's going to work. But they do a great job of organizing and making it seamless. So I encourage anyone who's interested, the jury time, the comments, it's fascinating, really, because we have not just architects, but we have planners and engineers and landscape designers, and she works really hard to get the top crust. The president of the AIA and president-elect are part of the group, and it's great discussion. Very good.
Thank you, Kay, so much for stepping up and doing this. I really appreciate it. You're wonderful. And yes, there cannot be enough thanks and applause given. So thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Wellington at River Farm, Historic Overlay District.
So I'll kind of go through them real quick, Chris, if that's okay.
I'll go through all 3. Perfect. Just hit the lineup.
Yes. Wellington at River Farm update. There's a board hearing next week, next Tuesday on the 14th, and it's at 3 o'clock. Chris, did you correct me?
Yes, 3 o'clock. Yes.
Okay, 3 o'clock. Sorry. I have another item that day and I was getting confused. Okay, so 3 o'clock on the 17th, if you're interested. The ARB, I think I forwarded you all that letter of the Wellington that Chris wrote in support of the modifications to the Historic Overlay District. So just to be clear, the Historic Overlay District has already been adopted. The item next Tuesday is a modification, a slight modification to it in response to state legislation that gave you all a little more power over site plan review, approval of site plan review instead of just recommendations, recommended approval, and has a kind of controversial issue about public access to the site. So,
and it doesn't actually allow for comments. So our letter is our comment in this situation.
right, and it's for decision only, which means there's no comment, but you can submit comments. There's no public testimony at the hearing. So we've been waiting since the end of June for that to be adopted. So hopefully we can wrap that up. So if you're interested, and there are some rumblings about John, thank you, and Denise, thank you for sending me the letters from Save River Farm about a commercial, someone wishing to purchase it and create some sort of commercial something or other, which is very alarming. But the historic overlay district's already in place, and if they did do something commercial there, they'd have to go through a rezoning and also a comprehensive plan amendment. So they'll go through the full gambit of review if they come in for something commercial in nature. I don't have any more details about what that may be. Just that's what the letter that we got from Save River Farm today. I'll keep you all posted, as that's kind of a breaking story in the last 2 days.
Thanks, Laura.
Any questions about that, John, specifically? I'm just going to call you out. Okay. Okay. So the Holland Hills update, happy to say we did not get the Holland Hills authorization in July as we had hoped to move forward. However, we do have an active, the supervisor's office has an active survey for the community about asking about the historic overlay district and if they support it or not. And that's running, if anybody asks, from September 7th to September 30th. And if you're interested, I can send around this public input website, which is a community access website. It's really, really good and gives background information about Holland Hills. And then at the end, there's a poll, and you can't take the poll unless you have an address in the, like your property address and stuff is in the community, but it's still like an interesting website, a good community tool that we've engaged in with DPD. So that's active and going. And then in October, whatever results come of the survey, we'll be working with the supervisor's office on next steps.
And Laura, I think in the long run, the county is going to be able to have a great example of how we've evaluated an idea for an overlay district for a neighborhood like this. Whether or not, whatever happens, I think this is a great case example that, you know, maybe you and Denise should think about in the future of something that might be worth showing off at some point. If this is how, from all different levels, it was looked at, because there's been a lot of engagement on it.
And there's a lot of lessons learned, and I mean, and good things that happen, but this is just so unprecedented in so many ways, with the setup, the community engagement, using public platforms, going virtual. COVID happened in the middle, you know, surveying 500 property, making analysis. So it really has been kind of at every turn. So as Wellington was kind of the quick track version, this is kind of on the very slow burn. It's been 5 years since the community petitioned the supervisor to have this adopted. And it looks like if everything goes well and we do move towards adoption, we're not going to go to public hearing probably until early next year for the community, which probably be a couple meetings on that too. But anyway, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. It's just when you're this deep in it, I can't find my way out of the muck. So we're still going. And then,
Chairman,
yes,
may I make a comment on that?
Absolutely.
One is we all owe an enormous debt of gratitude for Nicole Brannon for all her work and shepherding the cats through the community meetings, especially the board that was put together to represent both the community and the ARB. And thanks also to the ARB members who participated in that. That was a yeoman effort by everybody concerned there. I will note that tonight there was a community meeting about the historic overlay district, which I could not participate in. But while you guys were considering the powerhouse at Lorton, I turned on and I was able to at least watch the chat to see what was going on in that meeting. There were only 33 people in the meeting, which was a tiny representation of a community with over 470 houses. But nevertheless, and it seemed to be going okay. There were both pro-HOD people present in the meeting, as well as anti-HOD people present in the meeting. There were also people who were involved in the litigation against the county and the Civic Association of Highland Hills regarding the renovations of the 2 drainage swales that run through the community as part of the protections of the Chesapeake Bay. But I didn't see anything that made me like, oh my golly, this is going to fail in the chats that I saw. Also, you should know that there's some anxiety in the community because a homeowner has come to the design review community in the neighborhood and said they want to tear down their house and put up a new house in its place. And there were some questions about that tonight. But when I checked with Laura the last time I looked, that there's no demolition permit been applied for that particular property. So that is a threat, but it is something that's got the community kind of concerned. So that's from the Highland Hills end of things.
As I told John too, because the site is located, because the neighborhood is already on the inventory of historic sites, if a demolition permit comes in, it still should get triggered for our review. So we will, if everything goes well, we will know about it. And then I did give John, if anybody's ever interested, you can go to our permit database, type in an address and look up the status of any permits on that property for the last umpteen years. So if there is a concern about that, but yeah, we're aware of that, John. Thanks for bringing that to our attention and keeping an eye out for any developments on that side.
All right, Homes Run.
Homes Run Acres. Okay, so actually, kind of an announcement, but Denise is also taking on Homes Run Acres. God bless her, and we'll be doing the transition in the next couple months on that. Starting up the work group meeting sometime in the next 2 months or so, and starting that humans effort that we talked about with Nicole, going through the work group meeting on the contributing and non-contributing structures and getting that going. So we're still on tap for that. Highland Hills and staffing delayed that a little bit more than I think we had hoped, but doing the best we can, and we're making progress. So I think that's good enough at this point. So Homes Run Acres, I think we need to redo the schedule, so I can't even tell you right now anticipated board dates and hearing, but Denise and I will be working on that in the next, we'll probably have an update for you next month on scheduling.
Okay, great.
And then rezoning cases, section 106, if there were any specific cases there were concerns about, to let me know, and we can take
Well, and everyone saw that we obviously did convey, Jason signed a letter conveying comments on soapstone for the agreement document. Thank you, any members who provided input on that. So those were sent out. I don't know, any members have any comments about any particular cases or 106 cases that Laura had on her lists?
2 things. I want to let everybody know that we requested a higher level of documentation of the overall master plan for soapstone than what was proposed in the draft MOA, and that was endorsed by both the History Commission, which, by the way, at least the History Commission also had some very thoughtful comments on the importance of history in the mitigation. So thank the History Commission for that. But also VDHR endorsed having more intensive documentation of the master plan of soapstone.
Great. All right. Any other discussion or update reports, or are we moving on to correspondence and announcements?
But in terms of 106, Laura, you sent out a synopsis that appeared to be a PDF that didn't show. You couldn't scroll through the detail in the various cells within that that document. And I was just wondering if there's a way of providing us more details so we can figure out what some of that stuff is.
Yeah, we can work on that, John. I think I sent you a separate one with the Excel spreadsheet, like a new Excel. I just had to save it as a separate Excel.
Okay, if you did, I haven't seen that. I apologize.
No, no, it's okay. I was trying to capture it with the least amount of work, and it did not work like I wanted it to. So I understand that, and I will, Denise and I will work on making just an Excel spreadsheet so you can manipulate it. As appropriate. I just changed it. I tried to print the section and it printed to PDF, and then it cut off all the stuff that I wanted it to. So my apologies for that.
Yeah, you essentially got a screenshot instead of the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, design guidelines.
So Tracery submitted a whole slew of revised design guidelines for you, and they asked about coming to present, but I didn't feel like that was super necessary based on the comments that, and updates that they had made. So I wanted to give everyone a month to review it, and if we felt like we wanted them to come in October, to provide comments, we could. I know we're all familiar. This is not our first review of design guidelines for them, so I know we're all familiar with the templates and layouts, and so it's really just content and issues. So please, if you have comments on those, if you get us in the next 2 weeks, I'm putting a date on it. September, let's say the 9th, September 24th, and we'll send out a reminder to you to try to get comments to us on those so we can turn it around to traceries.
I will say these are pretty crucial ones, particularly given some of the, Woodlawn, of Centerville. Some of these HODs, so any input anyone can share and convey so that we can make sure traceries is on the right track, please do. I know, Michelle, you've been doing the yeoman's efforts of providing a litany of different comments on them, so thank you so much on that. I know other folks have too, but I know Michelle has just been a titan of input.
And Langley Fork as well. I think almost every meeting we have something from Langley Fork now. I don't know, it's something in the water up there, but I think every meeting we have something, one or two comments from or cases from Langley Fork. So, and then so the September 24th, if we could, we'll send out a reminder, but please try to take a look at those. They're very long. I know it's a long bit, but just parts of it, that'd be great. And then the last part is I sent you all an email a while ago about the county redistricting effort. If that's something you're interested and want to talk more about, please reach out to me. I think most of the information was in that email, but it's just talking about with the census data, redistricting for the county, and what that means for the entire county and the setup. So.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Laura, did you send us a SharePoint link for the new design guidelines?
They should have been, they should be in the
administrative
admin items.
In the admin items. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments on those items? I actually have one item of, partial update, partial new business to add. So the Reston Comprehensive Plan Task Force will be picking back up next week. It's been on hiatus for the last month, in which county staff was getting a chance to kind of chew on the revisions that the diverse group put together to submit for the updates to the comp plan. I'll tell you all that apparently I set some standards for what sections should look like for the heritage section, perhaps just because I know how governmentese is written. So I hope that after county staff has looked at it, though, I want to at least let you all see what was presented, but it's gone from a very brief section to a much more robust section, at least when I submitted it, advocating for a lot more consideration of reuse of heritage resources, as well as recognizing the immense likelihood of properties in Reston. So, and I know one member of the History Commission, Barbara, actually took a look at it as well and provided some comments, and she only had minor input, but I hope to have something to show you all, and we could at least talk about it coming to the next meeting. In that same vein, the Supervisor Alcorn reached out to me today regarding an issue regarding Lake Anne. So I don't know if many of you have noticed in the news, Lake Anne has been going through a lot of infrastructure issues. Particularly last year, there was a lot of hot water problems. And so just recently, the county conducted an infrastructure kind of assessment of the village center. And the way the supervisor conveyed it to me, it's a very large number. And this is, water, electrical, also spalling concrete from some of the exterior surfaces. And so he reached out to me saying, one, that he wanted to obviously let me know that this is going to be a topic in the future. And that there's a meeting coming up on September 13th from 5 to 6, in which they will be presenting some of the results of that survey. And so Laura, I can share that with you. It's just on the Hunter Mill website. Right now, there's not a link at this moment, but it can be attended virtually. I conveyed on our behalf that obviously the ARB would love to be involved in early and robust discussions about anything that would happen at Lake Ann Village Center. And that's probably been the biggest challenge we've had in the past, is being brought in too late, and that recognizing that Lake Ann needs to be able to serve the residents, but that it can be done in a sensitive way. And there's lots of incentives, because it's a listed district, for ways for that to be done in a meaningful way and be done in an effective way. I also highlighted that just because county staff says certain things don't meet code does not mean there cannot be flexibility in that too. So I think he was receptive to that offer, and I basically said we want to help, to make sure this is a property is protected, and I think he appreciated that as well. So that's just want to give you all an update on that and bring up that meeting that anyone can obviously sit in on.
Chris, that's wonderful that they reached out to you. I'm very pleased to hear that. I will observe that the spalling concrete was an issue a while back, and it was solved with paint. And now that apparently the problem has simply been covered over for a while and is now resurfaced. So that's just something to be aware of. I'm talking about in the J-shaped commercial area.
And that
they
actually brings
painted
up a
that
good
over.
point, John. There was something that was also asked, and this is something that perhaps any of us might know about, is do we know of experts in the field related to these types of properties and this type of architecture that the county as well as the community could possibly reach out to? Because I think there was an interest in recognizing that Lake Ann is unique in its architecture, and that if there are resources or experts that we would think would be helpful, firms, contractors, whatsoever, that if we knew places that we could point to seek input on, that would be a helpful tool as well.
Absolutely, there are people with the expertise to repair concrete to match the historic concrete, so that you don't have to paint it to hide the patches. So yes, that is an eminently doable technology.
Oh yes, but I'm thinking even just of individuals that have expertise in the buildings altogether, if there's going to be a county initiative pushed on it or some type of. So if you think of anything, please feel free to pass on to me, or like I said, I think we're striking really well here in the sense that we're trying to get ahead of some of these things. And so the fact that we got a response, I was more than enthusiastic when when he called and said, yes, of course, we will be happy to take part in those discussions.
Great.
All right. Any other new business from any other members? Mr. Burns.
A couple of things. One is with regard to the One University Plaza building. I happen to know that the AIA Virginia Historic Resources Committee has been asked to become involved as a consulting party because in its former iteration as the Virginia Society of the American Institute of Architects conveyed an honor award on that building. And because of that, they have a vested interest in its future. And so I don't know what will come of that, but I'm just aware of it. The other thing is Isaac Newton Plaza. There has been a part one survey or level one survey that said nothing here, nothing to see, nothing historic, which I disagree with, but just we should be aware of that the next thing on the preservation fight to try and preserve some of the remaining historic character of the industrial districts of Reston is going to be Isaac Newton Plaza.
John, you should talk to Denise about this, because you alarmed Jordan Tannenbaum and he'd forgotten how much development is already approved for there.
Yeah.
And Denise is a staff person working on it.
Okay.
So she can give you an update on where it is.
Be happy to. Denise, you know where I live, so we should talk.
All right. Any other items, John, or?
No, that's it for me tonight.
All right. Any other members?
Yeah, this is Joe. I was going to say that Untitled Chapter ASLA brought up River Farm, and we were named in their little verbiage that they sent out to the members that that we are to support the amendment so that the ARB have a chance to review what happens with that property. So AS liaison, Untitled Chapter.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Oh, and one other fun item. There's obviously a new book came out on the brink of change by Shelley Masterton. Just came out about Fairfax County. I don't know if any of you all have seen that. It's a really cool book. So if you're interested in reading about the history of the county in the 60s, particularly, I highly recommend it. Let's share a real quick picture of it right there on the brink of change. It just came out, not too long ago, right? So.
Right, it's recent. I also want to mention to you that the Army is contemplating renaming Fort Belvoir.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what, Elise? Thanks. I forgot about that one. And Laura and Fort Belvoir have reached out to me about that too, and I've conveyed my information on what I know about it. Long story short, it derives from who suggested the name for Belvoir that FDR eventually approved, and the not so likable background of that potential individual being potentially a white supremacist and a anti-desegregationist. So I've encouraged that if that research needs to be done in those factors as to about what drove that change, because the name of the installation itself isn't named after one of those folks. It's named after the historic property and the manor site. But Laura, yeah, please keep us updated on that as that progresses.
They seem to be reaching out fairly widely for comments because they contacted the County Historical Society.
Yeah, Tammy Manarino from History Commission said that Supervisor Stork reached out to her directly asking her, and she contacted me, and so then I contacted Chris, and we're on a fact-finding mission right now to see.
I had the Fort Belvoir staff contact me going, people are trying to change our name.
Well, right, and so I think I was like, well, Chris used to work there, so I'm going to ask him, and then I pulled some of the Fort Belvoir files to see if there was any historic district file to see if there was any reference, and I didn't find anything more than what Tammy already had. But I think if you hear rumblings of it, I'm sure there's going to be a larger discussion coming in the pike on it. From what Tammy had said, it seemed like there was a list of names that all made sense to change. I think Fort Bragg was on there, changing that to something else, and then it was just like
Fort Lee and AP Hill.
Yeah, and then Fort Belvoir was like thrown in there at the end. So it was and that was the reasoning for it, was that as Chris had mentioned, was the nature behind the person who had suggested the name, not the actual name. So stay tuned on that.
Yeah.
All right.
My neighbor, there was a slaveholder just north of there whose house we're not proposing to rename.
Well, we're not proposing to rename our county either.
Yeah.
A Rest and Now reporter contacted all the Hunter Mills History Commission members in the Virginia room asking about the name Fairfax and whether we should contemplate changing it because the Fairfaxes were slave owners. So that may come up eventually. I think the county basically put it off as, this is something we'll consider if we're asked about it. Denise, is that about right?
Sounds right. That sounds probably right.
Yeah, yes, I think that's a fair analysis. And I think they were also asking about the seal, the county seal. There was a question about the seal. So
right, the seal in particular.
I feel it was a fishing expedition, quite honestly. Yeah.
So I have one more thing.
Oh, sure, Laura.
That I want to bring up. We got contacted the other day by Heather Bollinger, who's a circuit clerk. She works at the courthouse, the historic courthouse. And we talked about this a couple months ago about the maintenance of the courthouse issue, and it's not getting any better. So wanted to bring that back up. I know it kind of lagged there for a month or two, but just bring it back up to the ARB's attention, that we're still that follow-up conversations didn't get us very far about finding funding through current cycles. So we might need some advocacy on your behalf to
Hmm.
get that remedied.
Well, I drove by that a couple of weeks ago, and it appeared as though they have substantially completed the work on the roof.
At the jail. This is not just the jail. This is
The
the
overall
actual
property. Yeah,
this
okay.
is the actual, yeah, this is like the historic courthouse. It's like brick, brick and, mortar's crumbling. They replaced it. It's not holding up, and they replaced it improperly. And I will send you the email that Heather sent with pictures that you can see the current
Yes.
state that's in. But
They
wanted to bring that
sandblasted it.
up. I'm sorry.
I'm told that they sandblasted it at one point.
I'm not sure. I don't know. And Heather's probably if you're familiar with Heather, she's probably the best person on that. But she's literally walking outside, and I think Denise, correct me if I'm wrong, she said something about the birds are using the crumbling mortar as part of their nesting and stuff. Like it's just in really bad shape. So
Yeah.
we might need to take a little bit of an advocacy effort.
Yeah,
on
please share that with us, Laura, so we can,
Okay.
especially if there are pictures. I would, because like John, I frequently just drive by. I don't have a chance to stop.
Yeah.
I don't
You mean there's
frequent the
nowhere to pull
courts.
over? There's nowhere to pull over and like check.
I try never to be around. I don't have a plan being around the courthouses and the jails.
Come to my office.
Oh, there you go. There you
Go
go.
visit Jason for lunch. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to attention, and I'll be sending that out shortly. Okay,
All right.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Laura. Well, if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. I need a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? I don't expect any. Thank you.
Take
Motion
care, guys.
passes.
Good month.
Thank you
Peace,
for
y'all.
being very productive, everybody. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.